Now, labor turnover is a measure used by the HR department to determine how many people left an organization in a particular time period. So, HR might want to see how many people left us in the previous 6 month period or the 1 year period. And they see this to see how motivated the workforce is as a whole. Why are the people leaving an organization? Are there things that we need to change? Are there things that the competitors are providing that we are not currently providing, which is why the workers are leaving? So whenever any employee leaves, it's always going to be a nuisance for a business. You have to go about rehiring, you have to go through the whole process, interviewing. While the employee is not being hired, there is loss of productivity. So there's a lot of costs that are incurring whenever there's a vacancy in the organization and nobody's been hired yet. So a business will, especially HR department, we want to keep a close eye on who is leaving, why are they leaving, and how quickly can we replace them so that there's continuity in the business. Now, why would anyone leave? There could be many reasons for it, and these aren't all within the control of the business. Sometimes people just find a better job that pays better somewhere else, and if the business cannot match that salary, then people will leave, of course. So that could be one reason for labor turnover. Secondly, they could simply be retiring, right? It's their time to just hang up the boots and enjoy and just drive off into the sunset, and that's all it is. It's just retirement. Maybe one of your uncles died and giving you a large inheritance, so that's the time where you will say bye bye and you will simply leave the organization. Or you may simply be taking a break, sabbatical period, a year-long break, and you may need to replace people for that period. So there are many reasons why people may leave an organization, why there might be an increase in labor turnover. But the question is it always bad? Let's look at that. Now, it's obvious to understand that whenever an employee leaves an organization, they leave a gap, right? They have to be replaced. Maybe they weren't training anyone else to take on their position if they're not there. So that's leaving you a bigger challenge for handle to the business. So there's a lot of things that have to be fixed when an employee leaves an organization. So clearly there are problems, but also it provides certain opportunities for a business when employees leave. Oddly, that is true. Now, let's look at the problems that are created when an employee leaves an organization. Obviously, you have to go about recruiting new workers. That's an expensive process. You have to advertise, you have to interview, you may even have to give a higher salary to that employee. So finding new recruits is always going to be an expensive undertaking. Also, whoever this new employee is, they will need training. They will have to be introduced to the systems of the business, and it will take a while before they're up to pace to what the business needs them to be. While that is happening, productivity may be affected. The worker will take some time, and during that time, the output level will be down. And this is not good for team spirit. If people keep leaving a team, then obviously the whole team building exercise is lost when you have too many people leaving an organization. So there are some clear problems when you look at a high labor turnover. But at the same time, it's also providing certain opportunities. And a business can use this opportunity to bring in workers who may be more enthusiastic as compared to the ones who are currently in the business. Whenever anyone joins a new place, in a new group, new workplace, they always want to perform well. They want to prove that they are the people for the job and the company was right to hire them, and they will always want to outperform themselves. So new workers will always bring new energy, and that's something that the business can benefit from if labor turnover starts going up. Also, when you do look to replace the people who have left and you're bringing in new people, you can bring people in who have more skills than you needed before. So if you can bring in someone who has more talents, more skills, it can only benefit the business in the long term when you do need to expand in the future. Also, when you have these new ideas, you are able to bring more products to your customers, and the customers always like variety. The bigger product portfolio you have, the more chances are the more customers will be coming your way. So where labor turnover creates problems, it also provides certain opportunities for the businesses to become better as a result of this. So then this gives us a question to answer. Is labor turnover a good thing or a bad thing? Is a certain level of labor turnover acceptable? If it is, what is that level? Should 20% people leave? Then that's fine. Should it be 10%? That's the question we want to answer next. And the answer is that there is no fixed percentage. There is no one level that suits all types of businesses. Okay, now what's important to understand is that labor turnover is inevitable. People will leave an organization for their own reasons, and you can't stop that. But you can't be hung up on a certain number that if more than 10% people leave, it's not good for the company, we may have to wrap up. It all varies, and there's a number of factors that will help you determine what a good or bad level of labor turnover is. And one of those is simply the fact that what type of contracts are you providing to your workers. If it's a full-time contract, then you won't have so much labor turnover. People will have a longer-term contract. If it's a short-term contract, if it's a part-time work, then you know that you will need to replace them. People will be leaving quickly. So that's where the lower labor turnover might be slightly higher. Also, the level of skill that is required. It's easier to find people of unskilled category as compared to the skilled category. And that is something that is very common to see in the retail industry, where you see that a lot of people on the sales end are changing their place of work, going from, let's say, convenience store, from one convenience store to the next, or waiters from one restaurant to another to another. So there's a lot of chopping and changing in certain industries because the level of skill is not that high. That will also determine whether you have a high or low labor turnover. And finally, the level of unemployment in the area. If there's a lot of unemployed people in your area, then they would want to look for more work and better work every time they can improve on it. And that's where when the better opportunities show up, they will look to leave the previous job and go to the next one, and then the next better job and the next better one, looking for a better living standard. So there are many factors that will eventually determine whether you will experience a high labor turnover or a low labor turnover. But in the end, there is no generalizing this. There is no one particular percentage or one particular number that will tell you whether you have the right amount of labor turnover or the wrong amount. It varies from industry to industry and the level of skill that is required by the business. So it's good, it's bad. It shouldn't be the problem it creates should be tackled head on, but also the opportunities that it provides must be capitalized on so that the company can make the most of this situation. Now, in your exams, you may be asked to calculate labor turnover, and that's what we're going to focus on next, the calculation part of labor turnover. Now, this is the formula that you will need to calculate labor turnover. And the formula goes, in the numerator, you've got the number of employees leaving in a period. The denominator is the total or the average number of workers. Either will be provided to you in the question. And since labor turnover is always a percentage, it is multiplied by 100. Therefore, the formula becomes labor turnover equals number of employees leaving divided by total or average number of employees multiplied by 100. So the question that I have for you today is from 2021 June, paper 2-4, first case study in it. And all case studies in AS paper 2 will have a calculation question, and the calculation question will always be the B part 1. Okay. Now, what the first thing you should do with labor turnover question is identify the numerator and the denominator in the information that's provided to you. So if I look at the numerator, which is the total number of employees leaving in a period, I have to spot that in my question first. And when I look at this, this is workers who left during the year. So that is provided to me here. The denominator, which is the total number of employees given right above it, total number of workers, which is this part highlighted in pink here, total number of workers. All I've got to do now is simply read the question, understand what they asked me to do, and start plugging these into the equation. So, of course, the pink part will go here. The yellow part will go up here. And that way, all I have left to do is simply plug in and find the result of this equation. So, the question says, calculate the labor turnover for the night team. So, the night team is the second column here. And the numbers that I have to work with are number of workers total are 16, and the people who left were 4. And when I use this in my formula of labor turnover, so I'm just going to write LTO for short. How many people left? 4. What was the total number of workers? 16. Multiply that by 100, and the product of this is 25%. So this tells us that 25% of your labor force from the night team during this period left the organization. Okay, simple as that. Don't forget to put the percentage sign. Okay, you will lose a mark if you forget the correct unit, so percentage is important. Number 25, so 25% was the labor turnover for the night team. Now, you could do this for the afternoon team as well. I don't want to do it. I want to give you a little bit of challenge, the easy challenge, which is to calculate labor turnover of the afternoon team using this formula. Let's look at another example so that we are fully confident in how to calculate labor turnover. Now, it's very important that you read the question carefully before attempting it. And there are little differences here and there. One word could mean completely different thing. And if you're not careful when you're reading the question, you will always have the wrong answer. So this question that we're looking at says, calculate not just the labor turnover, but the difference between the labor turnover. So you'll be asked to calculate two different values. And what you have to calculate is the difference between the labor turnover of the specialist marketing workers, so that's one side of it, and the labor turnover of your admin supportive workers, which is the second column. So what we'll have to do is individually calculate their labor turnovers and then find the difference between the two. So starting off with the first one, which is specialist marketing workers, my labor turnover is how many people left was 2. What was the total number of workers? 40. So 2 divided by 40 multiplied by 100 tells me that 5% of the workers in the specialist marketing department left the organization. Compare that to the administrative support workers on this side. Their labor turnover would be 11 people left the organization. That's a horrible looking 11. 11 left the organization. 88 were there in total. Multiply this by 100 and this gives me a percentage of 12.5%. Okay. Now, remember the question did not say that calculate them individually. They wanted you to find out the difference between these two. So simply 12.5% minus 5% tells me that the difference in labor turnover of these two departments is 7.5%. I'm just going to make it a little prettier with that highlight, but that's what the question was, the difference, and the difference is 7.5%. And we can use this information to, determine something about the business, that more people left the admin department as compared to the marketing department, which indicates that more people are demotivated. There are more problems on the administrative side as compared to the marketing side. So that's how you would calculate it. Same process to be repeated every time you see the question on labor turnover.